Denny Hamlin doubles down, says he didn't touch Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson disagrees. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I know there are a ton of racing podcasts out there. Hey, I'm part of the problem, but I do love that in this day and age, we can hear straight from the stars of the sport, days, if not just hours after major on-track incidents occur. Say what you will about Denny Hamlin, love him or hate him. I don't love every episode of Actions Detrimental, but I love that he has a podcast every week where we get his mostly unfiltered thoughts on the sport. I do a podcast with Xfinity Series driver Brennan Poole. We have a new episode hopefully dropping later this week. Shameless plug right there. Obviously, Dale Jr. has a podcast. Corey LaJoy has a podcast. Parker Kligerman has a podcast. Kyle Larson has a podcast. We will listen to what Kyle Larson said momentarily, but let's begin with Denny Hamlin, who, of course, won Sunday afternoon, in case you missed it, won his record-setting 7th Pocono Cup Series race, but he did so in typical controversial Denny Hamlin fashion. Hamlin made a very aggressive move on a late race restart, made perhaps slight contact with Kyle Larson, forced Larson into the outside wall, allowed Hamlin to take the lead, get the clean air, and get the win. After the race, Hamlin played defense, saying, hey, we didn't touch. I put Larson in a tough spot, yes, but he had to make the decision to either lift or stay in the gas. That's just hard racing for the win. Kyle Larson didn't feel quite the same way. Larson brought up that that's twice this year that he and Hamlin have made contact racing for the win late, and both times Larson's gotten the short end of the stick. Larson felt like he's earned more respect from Denny Hamlin than he's been getting. Both Hamlin and Larson off track are good friends, which has added an extra wrinkle into this drama. You heard my take yesterday. I believe they did make slight contact. I don't blame Denny Hamlin for being aggressive, but if you're going to be aggressive and you make contact with someone and ruin their day, you need to own it. You need to accept some amount of blame for that and understand why, in this case, Kyle Larson would be upset. And Sunday afternoon, it didn't sound like Denny Hamlin believed he really did anything wrong. That drove me a little crazy. Monday, on his podcast, Actions Detrimental, Denny Hamlin doubled down on many of the things he said Sunday afternoon. He still believes there was no contact between their two cars.
I still contest we did not touch. I know it looks like it, but there's not a ding on the car, not a scratch on the car. Nowhere on the right side. If it was contact, I certainly didn't feel it. It was so small.
I find that comment interesting because even if they didn't touch, even if there was a millimeter of space between their two cars, Hamlin goes on to talk about how you don't need to make contact to get the outside car super tight. So I think they touched, but even if they didn't, Hamlin was still responsible for Larson completely losing the handle and sliding up the track into the wall. Hamlin said on his podcast this week that, Larson maybe should have lifted, but in that moment, Larson was ahead of Hamlin. Hamlin's the one who throttled up and forced his way into a position that Kyle Larson already occupied. That's not Kyle Larson's fault. He shouldn't have to lift. You should have to lift. You don't have the position. I fundamentally disagree with Denny Hamlin's philosophy on this one, but hey, I'm not a race car driver. I'll link the full episode of Actions Detrimental down in the description below, but there were a couple moments in this episode where Denny Hamlin seemed to accept that, maybe I pushed things a little too far, maybe this move was a little too aggressive, but he also said that he still wouldn't change a thing.
I didn't love it because it's Kyle Larson. He's a good friend of mine, but also I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't because I think about the opportunity for me to get 50, for 600 for Toyota, break the record at the track.
If and when Kyle Larson runs Hamlin out of room somewhere in the near future, pinches him into the wall, I hope Denny Hamlin understands that he had it coming. I do appreciate Denny Hamlin's passion. He wanted to win race number 50, set that Pocono record, get Toyota their 600th NASCAR win. I respect when an athlete truly desires to win. You see in other sports sometimes it feels like athletes, sign that big 10-year, $300 million contract and then they just sort of check out. Winning is no longer that important. I appreciate Denny Hamlin's passion. He wants to be remembered as one of the greats. He wants to be great on the stat sheet. He wants to break records. I do appreciate that. I guess all I'm trying to say is what goes around comes around. He should be prepared for that. Sportsmanship, maybe. I still value that as well. Maybe that makes me old school. I don't know. Before we listen to Kyle Larson's comments, I thought this was remarkable. I saw Denny Delivers on Twitter, a big Denny Hamlin fan, tweeted out a photo from Denny Hamlin's online store. I went to his website to confirm for myself. Yes, Denny Hamlin is selling this t-shirt right now that says, "Yes, I am always right. I've been right 50 times so far." Man, actually, that 50 hat with Denny Hamlin's like signature on it, that actually goes pretty hard. I kind of like that. If I was a Denny Hamlin fan, I'd scoop that up. But man, I've said this before. I'm not a big fan of the quotes on t-shirts. Alex Bowman sort of made it his thing. He had the nobody likes this t-shirt, some self-deprecating humor. Okay, fine, whatever. But then he had the hack shirt, which is a cool looking shirt. I'll give him that. But I thought that was kind of cringe because he wrecked Denny Hamlin in that race. He made a mistake and took the 11 car out for no reason. Got called out, justifiably so in my opinion, but then turned around and made a t-shirt out of it. I don't know. I just think it's kind of cringe. I know sometimes these shirts, and I don't know about the hack shirt, but some of them go towards a good cause. Proceeds go to some charity. So that's all great. There's nothing wrong with it. I just think sometimes like shirts like this, a little cringe. Just me. If you're a big Denny Hamlin fan, maybe you're eating this up. I don't blame you, but as an objective viewer here, it's just, that's not what's important. Denny Hamlin has a podcast. Everyone knows at this point. Kyle Larson, you may not realize, also has a podcast, the High Limit Room podcast. On the latest episode, which came out yesterday, Larson said Denny Hamlin did make contact.
He went in there to, run as close as he could to my left side, which he did hit me. I know he says he didn't, but the replays clearly show that he makes contact with me and then my car shoots up the racetrack. So, it was an intentional move. I don't know if he necessarily meant to put me in the wall.
Again, y'all know who I side with on this one. I think there was slight contact, and slight contact at Pocono can lead to big problems. So I agree with Kyle Larson's perspective here. In this next clip, I think Kyle Larson demonstrates some good self-awareness. I think Kyle Larson is maybe the most self-aware Cup Series driver in the field. I think he fully understands where he fits in among other drivers, how they're going to race him, how he should race them back in return. He understands what the score is. I think Kyle Larson is the most self-aware Cup Series driver, and this clip, I think, demonstrates that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I can't deny that I have not, made it moves exactly the same way as that or put others in tough spots. But, I feel like I can expect to be raced that same way back from those people, where I haven't put Denny in the wall. I've been spun off his front bumper, many a times now. So
see, that's the mentality I hope Denny has as well. Larson knows that, squeezing someone up on corner exit is kind of an iffy move. And if you're going to make that move, you should be willing to accept the consequences. Hamlin doesn't seem to believe that's an iffy move, or at least not when he does it. That's where the disconnect is, and that's why, like I said earlier, some of Hamlin's comments recently have kind of drove me crazy, and it sounds like they've sort of driven Kyle Larson crazy as well. Look, Denny Hamlin won the race on Sunday, so this controversial move, worked out for him. But people ask, was it fair? Was it foul? I do not believe it was fair. I would lean towards the foul. That's just my opinion, but I just hope that Denny Hamlin accepts that Kyle Larson probably owes him one now. You can run guys wide all you want, but if you do that, you need to expect it back. If Hamlin is okay with that trade-off, then more or less I'm okay with it too. But based on everything Denny Hamlin has said Sunday and Monday, it doesn't sound like Hamlin believes he did anything egregious, anything even wrong. And I get the impression that if Kyle Larson were to retaliate next week or the week after, Hamlin would be surprised or a little upset about it. And I guess that's the disconnect that bothers me. I'm okay with NASCAR drivers making aggressive moves. We live in a very aggressive era of NASCAR Cup Series racing, but if you're going to be aggressive, you're going to use someone up, even borderline, you should expect it in return. Larson does. I think Larson gets that. He understands that, what goes around comes around. He can make that bold move to win a race here. He might get it back later on. Larson has accepted that trade-off. I don't think Denny Hamlin has done that yet. He has not accepted that potential trade-off, and that's what bugs me. But anyway, share your thoughts down in the comment section below. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR every single day here on Out of the Groove. And thank you to my Patreon supporters, as always, for your very generous support. I will see you all again tomorrow. We've got some other news to discuss. Spire Motorsports making some personnel moves. There's some other silly season free agency rumors to discuss. So we'll be back again tomorrow to talk about all of that and more. Thank you for watching. I will see you then.